is utilizing Title 42, protecting us, our country from COVID and returning people immediately. But I don't have those numbers either. I don't think we've got them for April, May, or June. So this committee is, to a certain extent, operating in the dark in terms of what is exactly happening. I think my first question for you, I asked this of Secretary Mayorkas. He has not honored his promise, but will you commit to this committee to be transparent and get us this information on a timely basis?
Absolutely, Senator Johnson. You, in your role here, Congress, and in your role here in this committee, provides a very critical oversight. If confirmed, I will make sure that we're working in a timely manner, providing you with the necessary information. It's important for you to be able to. Okay,
I'll hold you to that commitment. Now, I think the next point is, I don't believe we have any idea where the people that are being processed and dispersed. And let's face it, when the administration says they're fixing this problem, all they're doing is they're getting more efficient at processing and dispersing people to all points in America. And I don't think anybody knows where they're going. As Senator Portman was talking about, they get a list of ICE officers because they don't know where they're going. I think that's absurd. Do you agree with me that we have no idea where these people are going?
Senator, it is concerning to not have that information.
Do you think states and cities ought to be told when an airplane full or a busload of people that have come to this country illegally and are being dispersed by DHS, do you think they ought to be told when they're getting a batch of these individuals?
I think coordination with local, state partners is very important. That's something I've experienced with, and I think it is important to make sure we're communicating information with them and sharing it.
But we're not sharing that with any state or local government, are we?
I'm not in the role yet.
Well, when you were sheriff of Houston, did DHS tell you that, by the way, a busload's coming up from McAllen and we're going to terminate it and drop these people off in Houston? Were you ever told that?
No, sir.
How much experience did you have in Houston with gang activity?
I have a great deal of experience. I've worked on gang murders before that had obviously a gang nexus, as well as currently we operate in a number of different avenues to combat gang crime in our community.
Which were the prominent gangs in Houston that you dealt with?
We have some of the local ones like Tango Blast. It's known, the Bloods, the Crips, Southwest Cholos, MS-13. We have a variety, just like many other jurisdictions.
So under my chairmanship, we held a hearing on MS-13, and it was chilling, to say the least, the brutality of that gang. When we are apprehending 6,000 people a day, overwhelming CBP, that's opening up corridors for drugs, for gang members, for very unsavory individuals to, the gotaways. There's 6,000 apprehended, 1,000 known gotaways. We have no idea how many unknown gotaways. This is way more than a crisis, and it's continuing, by the way. What percent of the individuals do you believe are going to show up at an ICE office, having been dispersed with just the address of a few ICE? I mean, do you think a high percentage of the 6,000 people a day, if we end Title 42, they're going to be dispersed? Do you think they'll show up in an ICE office?
If confirmed, I would want to understand what criteria CBP is using, what information they're gathering. Ultimately, they make those decisions on NTAs in comparison to NTRs. And so I would want to see what criteria and then what information is being utilized so we could work effectively so that we can keep an eye on the security of our homeland.
Again, we don't even know where they're going. So we don't know where they're going. We haven't given them a notice to appear. We just give them some, let's face it, very few, if any, are going to show up. So again, 6,000 people a day, no notice to appear, dispersed to all points of America, which we don't even know where they're going, and we're not providing any notice to state and local governments. That's what's happening. So let's talk about the unaccompanied children. I talked about gangs earlier. What we don't talk about very often is the fact that when we talk about unaccompanied children, I certainly think of 2- and 3-year-olds, right? We see all the pictures. The press always shows the pictures, at least during the last administration. But the fact is, 70% of those unaccompanied children are 15, 16, or 17 years old. They're not 2 and 3 years old. That's a very small percentage. Another fact is that 70% of them are male. So having experience with gangs, wouldn't you say a 15, 16, 17-year-old immigrant male would certainly fit the profile of somebody who might be in a gang or be recruited by a gang or be used by the drug traffickers to traffic their drugs, right? I mean, don't you find that in law enforcement? It's a minor that's trafficking the drugs because they don't get put away for dozens and dozens of years because they're a minor? Isn't that what's the reality of the situation is with this flood? We are letting in people that are potentially gang members. We are letting people that are going to be trafficking drugs or human trafficking. Isn't that your experience as Houston's sheriff?
I'm always mindful of not profiling and developing any stereotypes in my work, so I try to look at the facts.
That's not profiling.
No, but I'm saying at the end of the day, they're still teenagers. I know that if they're coming into our country, they're processed through CBP. There's different screenings that are done. And at the end of the day, they're still teens. And I think that HSI is a preeminent law enforcement agency when it comes to investigating how criminal networks are manipulating the immigration system to take advantage of these individuals. And I think it's important that we use our resources to combat and dismantle those criminal networks.
Mr. Gonzalez, you are engaging the same state of denial of reality that is happening under this administration with DHS and Secretary Mayorkas. And if you're denying the problem, we have no chance of fixing it whatsoever. This is a crisis that's not being addressed. It's a tragedy for this nation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Chair recognizes Senator Hawley for your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to both the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Gonzalez, I'd like to start with you, if I could, and I'd like to start with a fundamental question that I've asked other nominees who've appeared